Hello, my dog lovers. Hi. My name is Dr. Peter Tobias, for those who don't know me, and I've been a veterinarian for more than 30 years. And my passion is to empower dog lovers how to keep your dogs healthy and long living, and how not to spend as much money on veterinary care, because I know that vet care can be expensive and the costs are rising. And today, I'd like to talk to you about stinky dogs. If you're lucky and your dog is lucky and smells like freshly cut meadow, great, congratulations. But if your dog is a little stinky and when he or she walks in the room, people leave, that may be a problem. You don't want your dog to smell like athlete socks. Today, I'd like to talk about skin, bad smell, yeast, Malassezia, which is a species of yeast, and all that you need to know to make your dog smell like freshly cut meadow. So strap yourself in. We are in for a ride. And the first thing that we're going to talk about is why dogs get smelly. I'm not sure whether you would guess what the number one reason why dogs get smelly is. Can anyone guess? Well, it's actually them rolling into something they shouldn't roll in, or at least based on our human perception, they should not be even coming close to. Now, my dog packs is pretty good, but I know many dogs rolling and all sorts of different things. I dog sit Pax's friend Lana often. And as soon as we get on the pasture and she sees a cow pie, she actually rolls in it. So, rolling in something smelly for dogs is like perfume. It's like Giorgio Armani, Gio, or something else. I don't wear perfumes, but I'm sure that there's many different dog perfumes, and whether it's Eau de Death Mouse or Eau de Fish or Eau de Cow Pie, all of them make our dog smell very bad to us and very amazing to other dogs. So that's something that you need to keep in mind, that bad smell for dogs is good smell for us and vice versa. However, I would like to talk about the pathology of smell and when dogs get smelly when they don't roll into fish, cow pie, or something else. And the bad smell very often comes from detoxing or some sort of toxicity in the body. And people often don't realize that when dogs eat food that is not made of the best quality ingredients, or if the food sits on the shelf for 6 months, 12 months, or even longer, then they may get smelly. You may have noticed that some people may have a little stronger body odor, and it may be related to food. So food is one of the biggest reasons why dogs get smelly. But there is also another reason why dogs get smelly, and that's overgrowth of bacteria and yeast. Now, normally, dog skin is like a beautiful, varied, mixed forest, rainforest. When the forest is disturbed, then certain species may take over. And the dog skin is actually a prime example of that, because when dogs eat, let's say, high-carb diet or diet that is not that healthy, their skin is not healthy. And then one type of microorganism, yeast, called Malassezia, can take over. Now, normally, Malassezia exists in nice harmony and balance. Malassezia doesn't want to cause any disturbance. It has good life on dog skin. However, if skin gets out of balance or unhealthy, Malassezia starts spreading and pushing all the healthy bacteria out, and it overgrows, and it causes this funky smell. And there are many different causes, whether it's, as I said, diet, carbohydrate-rich food, toxicity, maybe repeated moisture, if your dog is a swimmer, may contribute as well. It can also be an overuse of antibiotics and antimicrobials or shampoos that are chemical. Or your dog just has a propensity, because of their genetics, a propensity to yeast overgrowth. So all those factors play a role. But it doesn't necessarily mean that your dog has to put up with it and you have to put up with it, because Malassezia can be brought back to control and back to harmony. And I know that you love harmony, not only harmony with your dog or in your family, but also on your dog's skin. So let's look at Malassezia and bacterial infections and what they are. Let's have a look at the microorganism itself and learn more about it. And let's go to the next chapter. So why do dogs get smelly? Well, it's not dogs' fault. Some people assume that dogs are always smelly. I actually have often people commenting on Pax's nice smell, wondering how is it possible that he doesn't smell like a dog? People actually assume that dogs have a smell. But healthy dog, healthy skin doesn't necessarily smell. The first cause of the bad smell may be diet. Similar to people who are on diet that is not exactly healthy, dogs may have bad smell when they eat food that is not that great. Like if you feed food that sits on the shelf for 6 months, 12 months, or even longer, it's processed. We don't really know where the ingredients came from. We know that some of the pet foods have rendered fats and corn and starches and byproducts. Your dog has to get rid of it. And skin is the largest organ, and it's also the largest detox organ. So dogs actually eliminate these toxins through skin. People do too. And that results in smell. So that's one cause, diet. And I know that some of you really do your best, and most of you do really your best to feed the right food and the best food. Sometimes it's hard because of the budget and so on. So just remember, feed your dog ideally fresh, raw, or cooked diet. My colleague, Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib wrote an amazing book called The Forever Dog, and that has recipes and different ideas and suggestions, and you will really love it. I am very grateful for Karen and Rodney writing this book, because if they didn't write it, the world would be not as good of a place. So just check it out. Anyway, going back to diet and the causes of smell. So the next cause of smell, beside diet and toxins, may be bacterial or yeast overgrowth. And when yeast exists in harmony on the skin, our dogs are not smelly. The Malassezia yeast, that is the most common yeast on your dog's skin, is actually absolutely normal, and it likes to live on a healthy dog. But if your dog's skin is weakened or genetically predisposed to infections, or if there's some sort of other cause, maybe you've been using the wrong shampoo, or maybe your dog has been on antibiotics more often for skin infections or other problems, Malassezia may get out of control. It's almost like if you cut a rainforest. If you cut a rainforest, different invasive species can multiply and it will not be balanced. And your dog's skin is exactly the same way. If the skin is healthy, Malassezia stays under control. If the skin is diseased, Malassezia overgrows. And we know that yeast can cause bad smell. Now, yeast is also sugar junkie. Yeast are sugar junkies, and they love sugar. They love carbohydrates. So if your dog eats a lot of carbohydrates, such as grain and corn and starches, these complex carbohydrates actually convert into simple carbohydrates, and they're great food for yeast. So again, just remember, if your dog is yeasty, you have to pay attention to diet. But if the yeast proliferates, the last thing you want to do is to put your dog on anti-yeast medication or on antibiotics or something like that. Because what happens with antibiotics? It's like clear-cutting the bacterial flora on your dog's skin. It's the same like the rainforest. If we clear-cut it, it never ends up as well as if we look after it and if we keep it in balance. I have some good news and some bad news. Now, I'm going to start with the bad news. Malassezia or yeast infections are often overdiagnosed, mainly because people assume that when a dog is smelly, that there must be yeast. Yeast is discussed so often at dinner parties and at lunches and at dog walks, and everyone thinks that their dogs have yeasty ears and yeasty skin and so on. But the good news is that you can actually determine whether your dog has yeast problem, number one. You can't really do it by culture because it doesn't work as well, but you can actually do skin scraping, or you can do acetate tape kind of sampling, and you can put under a microscope and you can see the microflora of the skin, and you can definitely diagnose if there is yeast present and if it has a party or not. If yeast has a party, it can get really rambunctious. It usually dances to the music from the 80s, and it jives really well. Just kidding. But don't assume that if yeast is present, that the yeast is actually the original problem. The original problem is your dog's skin chemistry and the conditions and diet and everything else. So yeast is almost always number 2 or secondary. It would love to be number 1, but it is number 2. And what we're going to do, we're going to give it a finger. Just kidding. So how does yeast present, yeast infection? Sometimes dogs have abnormal skin around the toes and in between the digits. It can be on the abdomen. It can be anywhere on the body. You can see sometimes the skin blacken. It can get kind of like elephant ear black, kind of like thick and black and smelly. So that's something that you need to remember. The causes, the underlying causes, beside what I already discussed, are also or maybe hypothyroidism or Cushing's disease, which is adrenal condition. There can be some underlying issues. So before you assume that your dog has yeast infection and there is nothing else wrong, you may want to go and see your veterinarian and ask them to do full blood work and assess for thyroid gland function. And they'll also tell you if the adrenal glands are out of alignment or working fine or not working. And they can also tell you if the adrenal glands are working fine and if there is no problem. As I'm speaking, I just remembered one story or case that actually makes me really sad. About 20 years ago, I had a client coming in my office asking me to put her dog down. And obviously, euthanasias are the hardest part of veterinary practice. And I tried to inquire why. And my client said, I'm celebrating 60th birthday and my dog is too smelly and I want to put it down. And when I heard that, First, I could not believe that I was hearing what I was hearing. And second, I made a very quick decision. I decided not to really comply. I tried to convince her to do diagnostics and do basically simple workup. And I knew that there was a solution for her dog. Nevertheless, the next day I learned that after she left and declined all my offerings and suggestions, she went to another veterinary clinic and the dog was put down. So I would like to dedicate this recording and this video to this beautiful dog. I will not name this pup, but I want you to know that when our dogs get smelly, they're still amazingly beautiful inside and they deserve the care. They deserve a chance. And I know that you're not the one who would put your dog down, but some people do. So let's move on and let's look at the causes of malassezia, the causes of overgrowth beside diet, beside toxins. And the next one may surprise you. You're not serious, are you? This is the answer that I get when I tell people that skin issues and yeast overgrowth and paw licking and redness and so on are related to spinal issues and injuries. Now, I'll explain why. For years, I was treating dogs with the conventional meds. When they came with skin issues, it was antibiotics, maybe special diet, and then anti-inflammatories. And I knew that these dogs will be coming back a month or 2 months later, and their dog owners or dog guardians would say, Peter, this is not working. And when you have this happening several times a week or a month, then you get frustrated and you question your skills and abilities, and then you start looking for answers. I discovered that dogs that have patches of bald skin and bacterial infections and yeast infections and licking their paws, that they actually may have some sort of other issues in the body. Many dogs who lick their paws actually have issues and injuries from the collar, or they injured their neck when they play tug of war, or when they roughhouse or something like that, carry a stick, run into a wall. Some dogs may have spinal issues, back issues, thoracic spine or lumbar spine, and they would start licking on the abdomen, or they would start scratching on the chest, or they're swimmers and they have tight muscles and they actually start paying attention to the armpits. So I discovered that dogs that have skin issues often have some form of muscle injury or spinal segment injury, and they have skin issues in the areas that are adjacent neurologically to the spinal segment or to the muscle, or they may be local as well. So this was a big aha moment. And I started actually treating these dogs for their back injuries, for their collar injuries, for their muscle injuries that were often undetected. And I started seeing the problem go away. I started dogs recovering from yeast infections. I started dogs recovering from redness and skin allergies that were actually misdiagnosed as allergies. And it was a big aha moment. And I remember when I started seeing the first few cases recovering, I was thinking, wow, why is it not taught in veterinary schools? Why don't we learn that actually skin issues can be related to the back and the muscles and so on? It's mind-blowing. So anyhow, if your dog has any form of yeast issues or bacterial infections or so-called allergies, make sure that you check the neck, check the spine, check the muscles for back injury. And I'll give you a secret how to examine your dog's spine in the next chapter. What? I can only imagine how some of you are saying, how does he dare to say that skin issues and yeast and malassezia are related to back injuries and so on? I know that he would understand diet and toxins and all that, but back and muscles, I know that this is crazy, but I thought the same thing when I discovered this. And I just wanted you to kind of keep your mind open for a little moment. And I promised that I would help you to learn how to examine your dog's spine. So anytime your dog has issues with skin or licks paws or scratches, make sure that you go along the whole spine and you push with your thumbs along the spine. Pax is not here right now, so I can't really help you or demo on him. But let's imagine that this is a dog and this is the spine, okay? So you basically go along the spine and you push. And if your dog turns around or twitches or maybe even tries to kind of tell you, hey, this hurts, you know that there's a spinal segment that is an issue. And then you look at the segment and you go along the ribs or even in that same kind of flow back, and you discover that those particular skin areas that are affected are related to that segment that is sore or tight or injured. So what do you do then? You go to your veterinarian who has an experience with chiropractics or physical therapy, or you go to animal physical therapist or chiropractor and ask them for help and then see what is left. I apply one rule to every single case that I have. Treat what you see what is left, and repeat it. And it's called healing cycle or healing code, but I will talk about that later in a different video. Anyway, just treat your dog's spine if your dog is itchy, scratchy, and has yeast infections. And then we'll go to the blood work. I'll tell you a little bit about hypothyroidism and Cushing's disease, just to make sure that we prepare the skin for beautiful, nice, balanced population of bacteria and yeast. And I know that your dog is going to smell like freshly cut meadow. I know that. 95% of you can't achieve that goal. So what are the symptoms of malassezia infection? Pax actually is just barking. He wants to tell you something about yeast as well. Redness, itching, hair loss, and bad smell of the skin. Sometimes thickening of the skin, sometimes blackening of the skin. All those are symptoms that there may be sometimes secondary bacterial infection, because as soon as there is yeast feasting on the skin and it gets out of control, bacteria jumps on board because there's a party and they love to have a party. Anyway, so the symptoms may not be specific, but as I mentioned before, they may be related to certain spinal segments and the weakened skin related to those segments. And when skin is weakened, we already know that the yeast have a party. So how do we diagnose yeast? It's not that easy because yeast is always on your dog's skin. So if you take a sample from your dog's skin and put it on a microscope, you will always see yeast. Therefore, there must be other symptoms like the bad smell or skin irritation, redness. Your dog is chewing and basically the skin doesn't look healthy. So then you can assume that there is yeast infection. But as we said before, or I mentioned before, yeast is always secondary, not primary. So basically, you can just assume that there is yeast infection, but you can never be 100% certain when it comes to your dog's skin or your dog's ears. Now, what do we do? First, before you kind of jump to treat yeast infections, if you suspect that it's there, you want to run some blood tests. Number one, thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone is an important metabolic hormone, and if it's not produced in sufficient levels, you will need to supplement it. I am not against supplementing thyroid hormone if there is a diagnosis of hypothyroidism, because it's going to improve your dog's skin health and will bring yeast back to under control. Second condition that is less frequent but also relatively common is Cushing's disease and adrenal disorder. It overproduces the corticosteroid hormones, and it results in skin that is not very healthy, sometimes thickened, sometimes smelly, and it does also support or promote yeast overgrowth. So if there's hypothyroidism or Cushing's disease, that can be a real problem and the core origin of yeast infections or yeast overgrowth. Naturally, the general blood test, chemistry, complete blood cell count, parasite test, and urine test is super important just to make sure that there is nothing else that you're missing in your dog's general health kind of status and picture. If everything is clear, then you go to the next step. I'll let you guess what people do when they have a smelly dog, an yeasty dog. They try to bathe it, but bathing doesn't usually work because we're not addressing the primary cause of this yeast infection and the bad smell. Nevertheless, I see many different shampoos and medicated shampoos used in veterinary medicine and on dogs without really having long-term results. Some of the ingredients that you may know are miconazole, ketoconazole, or chlorhexidine. I have a personal experience with chlorhexidine when I was in practice in Whistler treating dogs of skiers and local residents. One of the dogs got an incision and we needed to treat it with the chlorhexidine. That's what I used to use. And unfortunately, my client didn't understand and used chlorhexidine soap on the wound undiluted. Now, 2 weeks later, I removed the stitches and the incision just popped open and we were all shocked. Now, the challenge is that chlorhexidine actually is toxic to bacteria, but also to the cells that are supposed to heal the skin. So I don't really like to use any toxic shampoos on the skin if we need to heal it. Now, it can get rid of bacteria, but it kind of clear cuts the skin of the healthy microflora, and then pathogens can harbor on the skin more likely. So remember that chemical shampoos and solutions are not very helpful for treating of Malassezia yeast or yeast infections in general. Long term, not short term. It may get better a little bit, and then it doesn't get any better long term. I can only imagine that you are thinking of creams for yeast infections. Unfortunately, almost all dogs, lick creams off their skin. If you put it on, dogs lick it off and make the skin usually worse. Plus, you don't want them to eat the antifungal medication, especially with the petroleum product like cream. And I don't really like using creams at all for yeast. And you don't have to because there are some other ways. How about internal medication? Again, internal medication, antifungal drugs should be used only as the very last resort because if you use them, there's a high probability that your dog will end up with elevated liver enzymes or even more severe liver disease. So again, any of the medication, whether it's creams, whether it's shampoos, or whether it's internal drugs, most of the time you don't need to use it because you have to treat the primary cause of yeast infections. And your dog's skin is going to be amazing and perfect when you do. I am not sure whether you are aware that there's 37,000 billion chemical reactions happening in your dog's body every second. Not every minute, every second. 37,000 billion chemical reactions every second. Now, if you translate it into the demands on your dog's body, metabolism, and also the building blocks and the ingredients, it's crazy number. And if there's something missing, let's say magnesium or iron or calcium or vitamin D or B or K or other vitamins and nutrients, the body cannot function optimally. And when I started talking about yeast, I told you that yeast is almost always secondary. And if you don't provide the essential nutrients, there is no way that skin in a sensitive dog can be healthy. So remember that you will need to supplement the following 4 groups of nutrients. There's actually 5, but I'll tell you why. So the first one is 2. It's minerals and amino acids. None of these the body can make on its own. The body cannot make iron, the body cannot make calcium, or it cannot make the essential amino acids that it needs to get from food. Food is not what it used to be. It is depleted, we transport it, we grow it on depleted soils. And that's why you will see such huge difference when you provide just basic, essential, balanced mineral and amino acid support. I formulated Greenman, which is a supplement that I've been giving to my dog and also taking for more than 10 years. I am now 61 and I don't have any yeasty infections on my skin. My dog doesn't either. I'm just joking. But what I want to say is it's super important for you to give your dogs minerals and amino acids. So that's in Greenman. Second, vitamins. Super important because vitamins are essential for the function of every cell in the body, including the skin. The skin is the largest organ in the body, but not all the vitamins are the same. Most of the time, if you go to a grocery store or maybe Costco, there are regular vitamins. Many of them are made in China. And when I was looking for the right vitamin supplement, I just simply could not find it. So I eventually formulated a fermented vitamin called Soul Food. It is not only full of balanced vitamins, but it is also some ingredients for organ support. So Soul Food is not only vitamin and organ support supplement, but it's also fermented. And the fermentation increases the bioavailability and efficiency of the ingredients in the herbs and the vitamins 7 to 10 times based on research. So there is a difference between fermented supplements and vitamins and the regular ones. And that's why I love fermentation and use only fermented vitamins. Third, probiotics. Probiotics are super important for the function of your dog's gut and your own gut, but also the immune system. 80% of the immune system resides in your dog's gut. Hence, if you give probiotics, again, you will improve your dog's immune function and also your dog's skin health. And the last but not the least are omega oils. Now, omega oils are super important for skin health, for nerve health, brain health, and it's important and essential for cell repair. We all know that omega-3s are good for skin and good coat and healthy coat. If you don't give omega-3s, your dog doesn't have enough resources and sources to get it from elsewhere. Now, if you have any frozen food or if you have any processed food or dehydrated food, these omegas go rancid really fast. What we do, we actually source the omega oils from calamari or squid, which is a sustainable source, much better than fish or krill because they're not sustainable. Now, it took me 2 years to get Feel Good Omega sourced because it was so difficult to find the right source. Now we have it and we've been using it for many years with great results. People love it. I love it. And it is made in Norway. It is packaged in glass. And in order for it to be protected against oxidization, we actually put nitrogen gas in the bottle to preserve it while it's transported or the bottle is closed. So again, 4 different types of nutrients plus 1. Actually, it's the mineral and amino acids, vitamins and organ support, probiotics, and omega oils. We call them Fabulous 4 because someone from our customers actually one time said, these products are so fabulous, we should call them Fabulous 4. I do have some clients telling me, well, you give us a treatment plan and then you suggest your supplements and you're just selling. And I my answer usually is, what do you want me to do? Do you want me to just tell you what's going on and not to give you a solution? And because I have been in practice for 30 plus years and have seen the differences in quality of products, I basically chose to formulate them, and I chose to make them and go into the a labor of love, actually, to offer them to you. You can take them or leave them, but I've been giving them to my dog. I've been taking them myself, the human versions or formulas. And it makes me happy. Those products have 4.8 out of 5-star rating. And you know how difficult it is to actually get good rating. So yeah, check them out at petertobias.com, my website, and you can get some discounts if you buy the Fabulous 4 together. Now, the next thing is detox. And detox is another really important part of the treatment, of the yeast coat treatment. And I've been using Livertune. Livertune is a fermented product as well, fermented formula. And one of the main ingredients is milk thistle, but there are some other ingredients like ashwagandha and some other really important ingredients that help to detox the body. And I usually recommend the detox to be done only for 2 months in the yeasty dog and then repeat it for a week every month. So for 2 months, and repeat it for 1 week every month. I mentioned it before, but I'm going to repeat it. If your dog has skin issues of any kind, you have to check the spine. You have to make sure that your dog's spine is nicely aligned and that you work with either veterinarian, chiropractor, physical therapist, or acupuncturist who does have a knowledge of spinal alignment. Also detect any injuries to make sure that there is no muscle spasms, injuries, tension that make your dog lick or scratch, or it may weaken the skin. There's one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and that is flea control. It makes me really sad that thousands of dogs have been affected by conventional flea control. It makes me even sadder that many dogs have died from the use of these products. I really don't know why they're still used, but they're used and we can't really do anything else than not buy them. You're probably wondering, how do I make my dog less stinky? One of the mistakes that people make is that they bathe their dogs too often. Bacteria and yeast love moisture. So I would not bathe more than once every 2 weeks or maybe once every 4 weeks, but not more than that. And it may surprise you, but I use human soap bar made by Belida. It's called Calendula Baby Soap, and also baby shampoo from the same company. It's orange labeling. So this is what I use for packs, and that's what I would recommend for you in addition to skin spray to make your dog comfortable. And you can use the skin spray as needed, but make sure that your dog doesn't lick his skin too often. And that's about it for today. If you have any questions, you know where to find me at petertobias.com. If you have not subscribed to our channel or our newsletter, please do so on the website and on this channel if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook or other social media. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate your dogs. I really love doing what I do, and I will never stop being inspired by your love and dedication. And I hope that your yeasty dog will soon smell like freshly cut meadow. Give them a hug for me, okay? Take care. Bye.